this is very informal, and this is what I love about podcasts, because when we've done our film work and when I've had radio shows and I had a TV with public access in New York, I did a once-a-month show forever, and we were so nervous, and you make one mistake or you're just dying, and in the film work, Debbie and I would be going crazy. If we can't get it right, we're going to have the crew the next day, and then they can't come the next day. And, here we're just so human, we're just plain old people sitting here. So welcome to the Enchanted Self. And that's all about being human in your finest hour and in your best ways. And I think we should just take a minute to be very humble tonight and perhaps say a prayer, or at least stand in humility at the loss of another 13 young lives in California last night, and how important it is for all of us to reach out to our best self. We all have immature and crazy selves and funny selves and selves we share with best friends or mates or mothers and fathers if they'll let us, or whatever. But we have a best self, and a best self that can also live a very joyful life if that self regards other people with kindness and thinks of good ways to be helpful to others and to also enrich his or herself with reaching one's potential. Because if you don't reach your potential, you can't offer the world all the gifts that you really have. And it's very important to offer your best gifts to the world. And that said, we have tonight a very, very interesting show, because I have sitting with us actually my producer. I say my, like, Debbie produces for lots of people, but it's such a gift. I can't believe I have a producer and making films. And Debbie Higgins.
Yes.
And I have also with us two of the actresses that have been in several films and will be in my next film that we'll work on in a couple of months, which we'll tell you more later. And, okay, so Cris Brown, mother, but also actress. She's been in the last movie that we've done. Megan Brown, her daughter, who has been in every film I have made so far, except the first one, and I want to give a full public recognition to Cassidy Terracinio, who without her, I really don't know if the whole project would have started, because she had the first courage to go home and make the selfies that created The Truth, a short film, which was based on my book, The Truth, Diary of a Gutsy Tween. So I think it's great that she had the courage that led the way. And also Elena, and I can't even say your last name, so I'm not going to try to. Cuesto, who has been in the last two films and will be in the next film. So one of the things that I want to do today is to talk about how selfies are here. They're here to stay. They're in your back pocket. They're in your pocketbook. No one can say they're just going to go away. So you could make fun of them and you can be upset, of course, if it's your husband or your daughter or your son that does something freaky and it ends up on Facebook or Instagram or somewhere. But on the other hand, selfies are a great way to get to a natural level of sharing and communicating and having fun and also discussing things seriously and making drama. So we're going to go back and forth and talk a little bit about all these facets and even the notion that selfies can be used therapeutically, a new form of therapy. we have a bunch of little clips that are going to kind of go in and out of our discussion. And unfortunately, my printer wouldn't work, so here I go with my cell phone, which, again, another miracle that I never could have dreamed of. And we're first going to watch just a minute and a half. So I have to introduce Rachel Gesner. Rachel is not in the studio. She's one of the other actresses, and she's on FaceTime. The first video we're going to watch, she is doing a backstory on why she is such a horrible bully in the film, in both films, Conflict, and then again a little bit in the Medium. So we're going to, hi Rachel.
Hi.
Okay, so we're going to watch Rachel's little film. It's not the whole thing. It's a minute and a half. We're leaving out a little bit so we can get to everything. And then we're going to discuss a little bit from a therapeutic point of view and also as drama, what we see.
Hey guys, it's August. I know some of you have been saying like that I've been this huge bitch, and that I'm just not a nice person. I hear it a lot. I hear it all the time. I hear it in the hallway, behind my back. I find it on Instagram, comments, on Snapchat. But what really upsets me is you can't just say these things about people like that because you don't understand what's going on in their life that's making them have this behavior. I'm not saying it's an excuse. No, I'm just saying it's something to consider before you say something about that person. You put them in that label, or before you call someone that name. I know for me, I feel like a lot of people think that I go around being mean to people because I'm just so happy with my life, and I love the way I look, and I have so many friends, and I love everything in my life, and that's not true at all. No, I'm very insecure, and I feel like in order to make myself feel good about myself, I have to put someone else down, and that sounds horrible, but I'm being honest.
So, reactions.
That's actually pretty common in a lot of people, like in bullies in school or anywhere really. Like, they might be rude to someone, they like people will call them a bitch to put other people down, but they don't do that because I don't want to say they don't do that because they do that because they, a lot of the time, have even more insecurities than people know about. A lot of the times they put up this kind of confidence or this, attitude towards other people to make them feel more confident about themselves, when in reality they're really the insecure ones.
Yes, the root of the attack is the shortcomings of the person attacking, not the person that they are attacking.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But they, project a lot of their fears onto that person, too.
Yeah.
What do the grown-ups think?
Well, it's always been that way. I mean, throughout history, probably Napoleon attacked people because he was short and little. Who knows? But,
It's actually a myth.
I mean, it is that way. And, of course, we see it a lot because we're older and we've lived a lot of life. But it's good for kids, younger people, to know this because it won't take your self-esteem away. And most of the time, the bully will always stick their foot in their mouth eventually. And you see it in film all the time, and they're the ones that are ostracized, and in the long run. So, yeah, walk in other people's shoes. That's the message, if you can.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, it's terrible for the kids to go through this. It's really terrible when this is an adult now behaving this way. So I think if these issues don't get addressed when the kids are young enough to be able to change behaviors as adults, that gets really ugly. And you see it even in the workplace, people who never got past these issues. So it'd be good for those things to be addressed sooner than later. It just doesn't look good on an adult.
That's true. That's true. My parents always, when I was very little, I was like 4, they forced me to go back out after Kenny Beer had said something very mean. He said so many mean things. Thank God my mind has forgotten most of them. But I do remember that he used to threaten me that he was going to put me in the mailbox and the mailman would take me away. And that just stirred up all these separation anxieties of a 4-year-old, you know. But I think as I grew up, I don't remember having as many bully issues. It seems like when I was in school, if kids didn't like each other, they tended to back away from each other. You know, there was less, there were crowds, there were cliques. You knew if you were popular or you were just on the edge, but there didn't seem to be a lot of ganging up around that. And I don't know when that flipped and changed into a more aggressive situation that you two have had, and Rachel also have had to live with.
I think it's social media, of course, because people don't have to face at all. It's just like people that break up, when they break up a romance, they can text somebody, a Dear John. So without having to do face to face, it's almost like launching the bomb. If you push a button, it's a lot different than actually flying
That's
the plane
right.
and dropping it. So the more distanced you are, and when you have a big audience as well in social media, it gives you a sick power that people would never have otherwise.
And you don't feel the consequence of that action
Right,
as much.
exactly.
Absolutely.
And you can just as easily, like, you could have written, like, something really mean underneath someone's post, and if someone, like, confronts you about it, you can just be like, oh, well, I was kidding. It's just hard to interpret sarcasm through text, sort of a thing.
Good
That
point.
too, emotion and stuff is going to be hard to look through. Just if it's just through text, like you can't see someone's face or the tone of their voice through that either.
I think it's funny. I think I remember being on the phone in my room growing up for hours, and with this generation, I don't hear them on the phone talking to each other. They're really
It's true.
texting.
Yeah.
You don't hear the conversation on the other side of the door anymore.
It's true. I was on the
Yeah.
phone for hours.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, I guess if I were dating in today's world, the fellow who had broken up with me once I moved to Boston for graduate school from being at Barnet in New York, he wouldn't have schlepped all the way up and tortured me with 2 hours of a nice dinner, and the whole time I knew was building to like a breakup. I would have just got a 4-line note, which is worse and better. I don't know.
I
But
think the term ghosting now is worse. That's the new term, ghosting, and I think that's worse because you wonder, what is it?
yeah,
It makes you, that's that push-pull fight
That's
fight
right.
response, and
That's
that's
right.
triggered, which is awful for anyone.
Rachel, did you want to add? You have some thoughts on social media.
I was just going to say that while social media can be good at times to express your feelings, it's definitely something that makes it a lot easier for someone to be bullied because they don't have to do it face to face. They could just do it like on their screen, and it's almost like they can just say what they want to say without that person like being there, without them being there saying it to that person. And it's like, it's almost, you would think that it's less hurtful because you're not hearing it, but actually it would be more hurtful because it's on the internet, and once something is on the internet, it's there and you can't take it away. And I feel like just another thing is that a huge point is definitely that, like, while people may think this bully or someone who's not being nice to someone else, like, is doing it because, oh, they have everything they want, like, it's definitely something they have to realize is that, you know, they're just as insecure and self-conscious as everyone else. And I think a lot of people miss that point. It's still not okay, but it's definitely something to consider on that everyone is human, everyone has the same feelings. Some people deal with their feelings differently, and some people bully, and some people just, you know, keep it to themselves. And I think it's just something to keep in mind that everyone is human, and, you know, they're not just this mean person, you know. It's really important to understand someone's background and to really understand them as a person without judging them.
Those are good points. We have to study no matter what our field. And one of the researchers was saying that it's very important to not say do your phone while someone you love is around and not check your email and stuff, that actually it creates a feeling of loss because so much of the way we really see each other is through not only our eyes but little facial muscles and stuff around our eyes that have developed for thousands of years of communication. That's why you can look at a person and see right away, oh, you don't look right today. What's up? And when you take all that away, it's hard on us. It's really hard. Well, I'm going to play Mistress of Ceremony and see what do we have as our next little film, because I think they all lend themselves to great discussion. Now we're going to see Megan Brown over here, as she talks about about the anxieties of going to a new school. And something like this is a pretty typical thing that happens at least once or twice for most kids growing up. And it's just very short, I think a 30-second clip.
I miss Angela so much, and I'm jealous that she's hanging out with other kids. What if they're telling each other secrets like she and I once did? What if she already has a new best friend? I'm afraid that no one at my new school is going to like me, and I'm not going to make any friends.
That's it, and very short, but poignant.
Well, that deals with abandonment issues as well. Abandonment, which is a thing that's real prominent in kids today, because it seems like people can turn on a whim away from you, and most of the time they don't know why. It's not explained. They're not good at communicating and being heart-to-heart talks. I don't know why, but it seems like we're losing the communicative skills of the past.
That's a very good point. And I should mention that Rachel, Elena, and Megan are part of the Selfie Project, where we discuss some of these themes. And actually, the fourth gal who is not here tonight, Angie, I think part of her selfie was about how the little crowd had kind of split and nobody would really discuss why it had split, and it was very traumatic.
I think when going to a new school, definitely, I remember when I went from elementary school to middle school, I went to a school in a different district, and I had these two really great friends in elementary school. Then after I went to the new school, we were great friends, and the communication just kind of slowed down, but for no particular reason. I myself don't totally understand why that happens either, but now we both go to the same high school again, and I'm friends with them again, so that's cool. Another thing about just switching to a new school in general is that what you gotta realize is that in a new school, there are tons of people out there, and you'll definitely find someone that you'll befriend, or someone that'll like you, someone that you'll like. And it's not as bad as I think a lot of people think it is, because it's just it's a new school, it's exciting, there are tons of new people to meet, and yeah.
I have something to say about that. I think it's worse in high school than college. Just my experience from a million years ago, I went to an all-girl private school with nuns. I had one lay teacher. And I went to Red Bank Catholic after that, which was co-ed. And they had all gone to St. Leo's for grammar school. And everybody knew everybody. And I got there, and I didn't even know how to do a locker, locker thing. And I just was asking people where my classes were, and I had never been around boys like that, ever. And it was overwhelming, because they all were talking, they all knew each other, and I just felt like a fish out of water. I was from a town that was 13 miles away, and everybody else went to St. Rose, and I got schlepped up to Red Bank, and I didn't know anybody. It was very difficult for the first 6 months.
That's what I felt. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You made me think of something that I haven't thought of in a long time, but I left Fairfield, Connecticut, and went to Norwalk for 7th grade, and had been with regular kids, but I hadn't been the youngest by 3 grades, in a school. And I was overwhelmed because all these, particularly the guys, were swearing in the hallways. And it was like, I couldn't believe it. And the older girls were running into the bathroom to check their makeup and stuff. And I actually came home and told my parents I wasn't going back. And they said, you are going back. So.
It's kind of like how I was in high school, because, like, I went to this one elementary school, then for middle school, a school out of district, and then in high school, the same school, the district that my elementary school was in, so, like, I only knew, like, a few people, like, literally only, like, a handful of people from my elementary school, so I really knew, like, nobody. But I remember it was in my gym class where I met, like, my squad, like, a lot of my friends right now, and, like, yeah, I felt like a fish out of water, because I knew no people, and I was like, how do I talk to people? Like...
Yeah. In my elementary school experience, I actually transferred out of a Catholic school into a public school.
Oh boy.
So I transferred from I think it was St. Dominic's to Bayhead School, and I met a lot of my friends at Bayhead. I made friends. We had a small class. It was like really nice. Everybody knew each other, and like everybody was friendly with each other. And then I wound up going to PAA for my freshman year. So that was a whole like new group of people that I met and like made friends with. And then I wound up transferring back to Beach for my sophomore year. And when I got back, it was like I was expecting everybody to be buddy-buddy again, and it was mostly like that, but there were just some things that changed. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, it was weird to come back and see like, oh, I knew you in 8th grade, and like, yeah, and you're completely different now. Like,
Did you ever skip ahead in a book you're reading? Even when I've skipped ahead in a book, it like feels funny because I missed some chapters, and that organic feeling of belonging starts to slide away.
Yeah, it's like you take like the parts that you're familiar with, you take the familiarity, and like just something's just off kilter, and you can't tell what it is.
Yeah.
I have to share this because it just came into my mind after all these years. There's a Sadie Hawkins dance, which the girl asked the boy, and there was the guy who ended up helping me open my locker. And I asked him to the dance, and he said no. So talk about even more mortifying. He actually ended up being my boyfriend for 4 years, and we broke up in college. But he did say no, and I was mortified.
Oh.
I really, it was awful, because you felt, my God, your first interaction with a guy, and what's wrong with you?
Did you ask publicly or privately? No,
I asked him privately, and I expected him, because he was so friendly, and he went, no. So, and then I asked him later on why, and he said he felt shy.
Yeah, I bet he felt caught off guard.
He was caught off guard, and he didn't know what to do.
Let me see what's next.
This is bringing up a lot of the parents' difficulties in this podcast tonight. The kids are very grounded. We're all...
This is free therapy.
Yes. We're going to see Megan again. And this is a clip that didn't make it into a film yet. I actually showed it on the last podcast, Ming, when you were away. And Christopher, is that who helped me? Christian. Absolutely. It really enjoyed it. And I think it's so pertinent because people forget that the spiritual side of being a human being is alive and well in tweens and teens and young adults, and we don't give them enough credit or time. We don't answer enough questions. We're flip. We're indifferent. You may be very religious, but you've got it all together. You might be an atheist, so what? You don't, whatever it is, kids need the recognition and time around spiritual development. So that's the next little clip.
Dad said we needed more religion in our lives, so now we go to the Worldwide Universal Ministry, and I don't like the minister at all. He doesn't even talk about things that apply to me, or kids my age.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
I really want to know why things hurt so much, or why wars still go on, why all these kids are dying of overdoses and making bad decisions, and what happens when you die? But no, all he tries to tell us is, remember, King David had great struggles. So?
One thing I want to say, we filmed that segment, and that's the most beautiful church in El Paran from the 19th century.
It was beautiful
That
there.
a woman built for her husband who died, who was very wealthy in the Gilded Era, and they're only open for the summer. And if anybody gets a chance, please go there. It is gorgeous.
I think that one brings back memories for me, sitting in church on Sunday, saying to yourself, what is he saying? Why am I here? How does this apply to me? But you went because you were told you had to go. I think as older, now you go back for something different, and you go back when you feel you need to be there. So, but you're right. I think that, it's something that maybe isn't so present in the lives of the kids today, but I think they're connected on a different level than we were. I feel like they're much more aware of kindness and inclusion, and they're just so much more aware of those issues. And when you think about it, when you were sitting there each week, it was really a little lesson on how to go out and be a better person, for the rest of the week. I just think the kids are more aware of how to treat each other.
What do the kids think?
Watching this kind of reminded me of when I was little and my parents and I went to church on some Sundays. Like, I was this little kid, like, we're going to church. I'm like, okay. I'd, get dressed into, nice clothes. I'd sit in the pews. I'd listen to the priest talk and everything. I was probably, between, 3 and, 7. So I'd just be sitting there just, looking around, oh, this church is pretty. The priest is saying something. It's nice in here. But, when I was little, when I'd be sitting in church, it was just such, a peaceful, calm air. That's why I liked going to church. It was, even though when I was really little, I didn't understand, all those concepts and stuff that the priest was talking about. I couldn't take that in. I was, 5. I remember just being in such, a peaceful, calm air. And, I always knew, whenever I set foot in a church, it's just, this is a safe spot and this is a nice spot.
When I went to a church when I was younger, when I attended St. Dominic's, we actually had we had a priest there who, all the students loved. His name was Father Dean. And he was really special because whenever we would have a school mass and he was the one speaking, or just he was speaking at regular masses on Sundays, he would always relate the gospel or the homily, and he'd make the homily about something that everybody would be able to understand. He talked about Wes Anderson movies and spirituality and Moonrise Kingdom and stuff like that, and he talked about Finding Nemo, and he talked about Frozen when that stuff came out. So he kept it relevant, and it wasn't in a very hokey or cheesy way. He would always tie it back to something important, and he always made that effort to try to appeal to the younger kids and not just the adults and assume that they would know what he was talking about. He would always make sure that he actually taught the kids what it meant instead of just kind of leaving them to figure it out for themselves. And I think he's I think he was a very good influence in the church at our school too.
No matter whether it's church or school or synagogue or mosque, wherever it is, the person needs to have the quality of a great teacher,
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Rachel, do you want to add anything on this spiritual side of development?
Well, I was just going to say, it actually reminds me of our rabbi during Rosh Hashanah will always have a story that he says, and he tells it to send a message. I think it was that Megan who was speaking before?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, just checking. But like Megan was saying, he always would say it for a message, and it would always be some sort of moral. So just reminded me how, like, even, temples and churches, like, they are definitely doing a really good job of connecting to the kids. And I feel like younger kids sometimes can be a hard audience, and I feel like they do it really well. Like, they connect to the children really well, and I feel like it's really important because especially if you hear it at your church or at your temple, it's going to stick with you. And I feel like it just reminds me how, like, whenever me and my family would go, I would always, like, either I would have tears in my eyes, or I would just be like, wow, oh my gosh, I never thought about it like that. Because he would tell the story and he would relate it to something super important in life. Whether it be like how if you're nice to people, they'll be nice to you, or if it's even something as simple as just, if you do good in the world, then, you know, good will be brought to you. And I just thought it was very interesting, and I think it's really important, especially because of everything that goes on today. I feel like it's really important that churches and temples can really connect to those audiences.
Yeah, I think it is. And one thing I'm hearing is a very positive thing, that I think that many facilities are not ignoring the spiritual needs of kids. They're really trying. And I think that's great. That's absolutely what we need. So that's a big plus. Yay for the right spiritual leaders. So here we go with the next one. Let's see. And do you begin to see how these little vignettes cross between drama and even some therapeutic use? They really can.
Oh, it's recording already. I didn't realize. I'm doing this late at night, which is why I'm quiet. I don't want my grandparents to overhear me talking about this. I'd be embarrassed. Moving here hasn't been easy for me. I live with my grandparents, and I know they love me and try to keep me really happy, and they care about me. But I know that I've known for years now that Mother's not coming home, and that they were struggling to keep the farm and to help raise me. So that's why we moved down south into this huge town from the farm. And it's a huge change for me. In the farm, in the rural area up there, there were only a couple of kids my age who lived across the street from me, the Andersons. And they were really the only good friends that I had to talk to and that, you know, I was friends with. The school there was like less than 100 people. I really wasn't that well acquainted with anyone there. They were all so much different from me. In this huge school I'm at now, in this big town, there must be over 1,000 kids at this school. There are so many different groups and people that I can choose to associate myself with, but I don't know who to associate with. I don't know these people. And there are so many different groups of people, and I just don't know where I fit in. Okay, so what Melissa was saying in there was that it was a little bit of a backstory on like her shy and like reserved character. So in the past, she lived on a farm with her grandparents, and it was in this rural place where there weren't a lot of people her age. She was only friends with a few people that lived across the street from her. Those were like her only friends. In the school, there was like 100 people, and she wasn't very well acquainted with any of them. So her grandparents had to sell the farm to help raise her because they didn't have a lot of money. So then she moved to a city up north. And in that city, there was an enormous school that she went to, like over 1,000 kids. And she had like no idea how to interact with all these new people. And there were all these new groups of people and all these clubs and everything. And she wasn't exactly sure where she fit in. And only having a few good friends in her old town, she didn't really have the social skills to understand, like, you know, how do I make new friends? How do I talk to these people? If I like these people, how do I do this? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Let's go right ahead and see how these three characters come together in making a film that has a storyline. And this is a scene where the girl, who's played by Megan, is at a porch party with the bully, played by Rachel, and the shy girl, played by Elena. And we get a little sense of the dynamics.
Is Rachel still on?
Yeah, she's still here. Can't see your video. Her audio's still there, though. Clip 5?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just pretending to be close to Candace, and because I feel like if I'm not going to be friends with them, they'll talk about me behind my back, or they'll just ignore me. That's what they do. They bully the people that they don't like. Like today, there's a new girl, Melissa, and she was sitting by herself. And, well, August went up to her.
Just what do you think you're doing?
What?
You're in my seat.
No one was sitting
That's
here.
my seat. Get up.
Melissa, come
Come
sit
on.
over here.
Come on.
Thank you. This is Suzanne. Hi. She's like Callahan's chemistry class because I don't know. It's like always like our school together. Yeah. I don't know. He's a good teacher.
Just letting you know, you're this close.
And now I'm not sure if I'm gonna get punished for helping Melissa. So I wish school was different.
I always wondered what this close is going to lead up to, you know. It's just a wonderful thing. I'll start to say that to my husband. You're this close, you know.
It's such like a tense phrase.
I'm going to call Rachel back.
Yeah, please.
For audio
Okay.
share videos. And Rachel, we're going to call you back in a sec, okay?
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Audio is definitely there.
There we go.
I actually just have fun memories from being in that scene, especially because the two girls that were like sitting next to each other, the blonde girl and the girl with the long brown hair, those were two of my friends that I go to school with. So I just remember sitting on the porch with all of you, and like we actually like made pretty good friends during the filming process, and that was really fun to do.
Yeah, that was fun.
I think this close means she was going to ostracize her forever
Yes.
from
Yeah.
any kind
Yes.
of assimilation
Excommunication.
in the popularity world, you know?
And I think nowadays they can do that in so many different ways.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's so easy to do that now.
And it's not even in like an outright like you don't belong here way. It's just very subtle like passive aggressive things to just like make the other person uncomfortable, and it's just so pointless. Like why would you?
Oh,
Yeah.
such
I
an
mean, they even
awful
have it on Broadway
feeling.
now. There's the show Mean Girls. I mean, and it's like, you know, Clueless and things like that. It's almost the
Heathers.
the mean person is always like the popular one, you know, in a way. And yet undercurrently really not popular, and everybody wants to tell her off, but they're afraid.
Let's go right away to 8 and see how Megan responds in her own mind, acting to the mean girl. It's very short, and then we'll talk about it.
I hate August. She gets me so mad. Like, I don't understand how she can treat other people the way that she does, especially a girl like Melissa. Why would you treat her like she was nothing? It really gets me so mad. Does she know that she hurts other people's feelings? And does she care at all? I wonder what her problem is. Does it matter?
So there really are some psychological questions embedded in there. You know, does it matter if somebody goes out and shoots up some people, what their condition is? You know, or does it maybe not matter, but
I think it definitely matters because inside someone and like their behavior and everything, it's just the way that they cope with things or deal with things is different, like for everybody. It's like if you go deep in and like understand like what's going on, like, you know, behind their face, you can understand that and you can use that to like help just make the situation better and to not have tense scenes like that. Like whenever I watch that, I think Rachel played that part really well. She's like, "You're in my seat. Get up." Like, I was intimidated.
Sorry.
But you want to sometimes say to Melissa, what would happen if you didn't get up?
What could she do?
You know, what would really happen? But, you know, I guess you have to be really strong to make the choice to not get up.
Yeah, that takes a lot of just self-confidence and like determination. Like I'm doing nothing wrong, so I'm sitting right here.
Yeah, it's sort of like a weird like thought process behind that. It's sort of like if you don't believe in the power that someone has, does that actually like give them power? Because if they don't actually have power if you don't think they don't have power, then they don't have power.
Exactly.
So, yeah. I think that just goes for a lot of like high school bullies. Like we're all the same age, You don't have that like advantage over me.
I thought that too. Like we're
Yeah.
all like the same age. We're all in like the same high school. Like
Yeah.
We're all
for
just trying
example-
to graduate. We're all
Yeah.
tired and like stressed out, and like we're so like.
Yeah,
I feel like we should make our lives easier for each other than like harder.
exactly. That's a good point. I thought about that too. Like if someone ever came up to me and like said something mean to me or like just did something like really crappy to me, I'd just be like, why are you doing that? Like I literally don't care what you're saying
What
to
was
me.
the
Like
purpose of that?
exactly. Like I just don't understand. Like you're trying to be mean to me. Like if someone's ever trying to be mean to me, I'm just like, okay. Like I don't care. Because like I don't give them to I don't give them to power to make me feel bad, so they don't have any.
Yeah. If you don't get angry and you don't react, then they can't really get anything out of it either.
Exactly. Like
So-
that's like what parents always say. Like just don't react to them, ignore them, because like that's what they want.
Yeah,
They want a
yeah.
reaction out of you.
I think that also it's almost hard to put yourself in that mindset. It's almost hard to say, I'm not going to let this bother me. I'm not going to let this bother me, because
Yeah.
if I let this bother me, then they're going to keep going. And you want to not let it bother you, but at the same time, sometimes you want to say something. But when you stand up for yourself and when you say something, then it might sound like, you're upset and it's affecting you. So it's really hard when you're in that position, because you're like, I really want to tell this person off, but I don't want them to know that I'm upset. And I think everyone deals with that, regardless of whether they say, oh no, I don't deal with that, because I think that a lot of people definitely have that I feel like a lot of people have experiences where they feel upset by something, but they can't show it, if you know what I mean. If that makes sense. Like, they feel that if they show it, it's gonna, come back to them and say, well, oh, you're being dramatic, or can't you just take a joke, or something like that, and I think it's really hard, because as much as you want to say, I'm really upset by what you said, it almost gives them more power. But you have to remember that, it's only in your mind that you think you're inferior to someone else. And it's sad that people think that, but it's just a human nature response. If someone's being mean to someone else, they'll start to feel inferior. And they'll think that that other person is superior, when in reality, everyone's the same. And there's no hierarchy, regardless of race, regardless of gender, everyone's the same. And everyone should be treated the same. And there's no excuse for people to be, treating other people that way, even though, as we said before, that it's also super important that when you understand someone's background, not it doesn't give them that excuse, but it lets you understand what's going on in their life, and it lets you have, respect toward that person, and to think, well, I feel sorry for this person, and, I'm hoping, I hope they're okay.
I think that that's a good way to put it, that it doesn't give the bully an excuse.
Yeah.
But it does help us. There is something about understanding, where people come from and what their issues are. But when they invade our space, that's a very difficult thing. And another thing that was brought up at one of the conferences I went to over the weekend is how we focus on what is wrong with ourselves. Inside, when we're beating ourselves up. And, of course, that makes it harder for us to remember the whole person we are and what we can really offer life and offer ourselves. And so if we're in a situation where we're growing and we're vulnerable, it can happen at our ages too, but when you're young, people aren't nice to you. That's going to reinforce the dark side of ourselves, where we put ourselves down anyway. So it really is extremely important that teachers have an understanding of how to be nice to kids, and I've worked in schools for many, many years as a psychologist, and, a lot of teachers fly off the handle, and look, it's a hard job, and I know it, but they don't sometimes have any more tact than they would at home when a kid annoys them. And that can be very serious, because a kid can be really looking up to a teacher, where he may know that if his mom or dad says, get lost, pain in the butt right now, or whatever, They love him. But if a teacher says something inappropriately or harsh, they may feel very devalued.
And a lot of times it's done very publicly.
Yes.
And so
yes,
that, and you know,
yes.
some of those are very hard to
yeah.
recover from.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even know if they realize it, but that's
So-
where I think they do a lot of
Yes,
damage.
so much of this is, we could go on forever, but I want to get to the last two. I want to really do my agenda. I guess that's the teacher part of me. I want to give Rachel a chance because her next little video is a personal one that she could bring if she were in therapy. She might bring it to her therapist or have her parents watch it. Or if all the kids were doing equivalent videos in a school, they could be part of a guidance situation. So this is very short, and it's about her talking about her the way she feels that she should be perfect.
I just want to say one quick thing, sorry, about back on what Rachel said about like the social hierarchy. Like, I just don't think that's like a thing that exists, because like, you know,
Yeah.
it's always like portrayed in like movies and stuff, like they're the normal popular kids, like, you know, they like guys that are on like the varsity team, they play sports, they're in student council, and there's like the band kids, like they're all geeks, they have glasses, like all that stuff. Like I'm a band kid. I can tell everyone right now, no one in band is like that.
Everybody in my band,
Take
they're
off my
like the rock
glasses.
stars of the school. Especially
Yeah.
like the last year graduating class. Like it was like it was just such a great group of people that like everybody just loved them. And it's what they
Yeah,
were,
you're
like,
reminding me of like that whole Mean Girls thing where they're like, this is where the band geeks sit. This is where, like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, like,
It
they're
just reminded
band
me
geeks,
of when
that's
you
not a
said
thing.
that, the exact moment of that.
You know, like band geeks just like aren't a thing. None of them are geeks. None of them are nerds. They're just people that play instruments, and the normal people, they're just people that are on varsity, and the other people on the side, they're just people with different interests and different feelings and different thoughts than everyone else. There's no hierarchy. Everyone's just different. It's so cliche, but it's true.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I love the way you just jumped in. Good, you know, that's great.
Can I ask them one
Yes.
question? Can I ask the kids one
Sure.
question? Do you think any of it is based on looks?
For other people, yes. Like, for me personally, like, I don't think, like, looks are, like, something that defines someone. Like, everyone's just different from each other. It's just how it is. But I know for other people, like, I'm gonna call out my brother right now. He's like, oh, this one person, she looks weird. Like, don't be her friend, and, like, stuff like that. Like, she looks weird. So, she can't help that.
Yeah, and it is. I definitely think that is a thing. Like, as sad as it is, I personally like. I don't really see like why you would go by like someone's looks, especially if like you can get to know them and like what a wonderful person they are.
Yeah.
And especially since like looks are completely subjective to like everybody.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're going by looks and like who you interact with based on that, you should probably stop, because that's not how the real world. It's not how the real
But
world.
in the film culture, as you well know, in movies, it's always the beautiful girl, is the
Yeah.
popular girl that has the hair and the this and the that. And I just wondered if it's still crossed over into schools nowadays.
Anyway, now I think we really can go to the next
I don't know
film.
if anyone else feels this way, but as a teenager, I definitely feel like no matter what I do, it's just not enough. I try to be this perfect person, and I know there's no such thing as perfection. And I'm glad there isn't, because life would be a lot stressful. But I still feel this need to be perfect. I still feel this need to be this person who can't be dramatic about things when she's upset, who can't stand up for themselves when someone hurts them without being called, like, well, why can't you just let it roll off? And it honestly sucks. And I've had friends who make me feel like, you know, these things, and it's so hard because it's just, it feels like these friends who you know or we thought were true and who you thought that they cared about you, that they're still making you feel like you're not allowed to have these feelings, and they're almost making you seem like, or making you think it's your fault. And it just sucks
Well,
That just had me thinking the definition of perfection. I think that, like, I understand what you're trying to say, Rachel, that a lot of people try to reach this level of perfection. They want to be perfect. They want to not overreact to things. They want to be this great person. They want to try to be their best self. And for a lot of people, a lot of the time, that's difficult because sometimes I'm trying to think of words. In the definition of like perfection, like in the fact that like all people are unique and are themselves, like I think that like all people are perfect because they are themselves and they are unique and that's just who they are. But like, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I agree with you. I think the sad thing is, though, the part where that comes into play, the whole, perfection, is not everyone has the same mindset as everyone else. Like, maybe someone will think, this person made a mistake. Like, oh my God, like this person made a mistake. Like, oh my gosh. Whereas the other person will be like, not everyone is, well, not everyone, like nobody is perfect. And it's sad that people today can't always see that, your people, people in school, they can't always see, well, oh my gosh, I love this person for who she is, or I love this person for who he is, because even with their imperfections, I love them, I respect them as a person. I think that their imperfections don't have to do with anything. Like, I'm not judging them for their imperfections. And I think it's sad that a lot of people in society, not everyone is going to think like that. Some people are going to say, oh my gosh, well, this person is this wrong with them, this wrong with them. And I feel like people have to look at, the positive stuff, the positive qualities that a person has. And instead of adding the negatives, they should be adding the positives.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say.
I really liked your point that you made that, like, it's not just, like, the mean girls at school that make you feel bad about yourself. It's the people that you call your friends and, like, you surround yourself with, too.
Yeah. Like, there are many times
where...
where...
go ahead, it's okay.
Oh, my gosh, sorry. No. It's hard to hear. Like, there are many times where, I don't know if this has happened to any of you guys, where I'll just be like, what is wrong with me? Like, I don't get it, like, this person is nice to this person acts a certain way to this person, but with me it's different, what is wrong with me, what? And it's so sad because it's just so upsetting because, like, you're starting to get in that mindset of what's wrong with you, and then you have to remember that, you're yourself, and if someone's making you feel like you're not amazing because of who you are, and they're making you feel like what is wrong with me, then they're not true friends, and it can be really hard to find that out. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever had that feeling where you just think, what's wrong with me? There's obviously something that is wrong with me.
Because like that.
Because this person doesn't treat me like they treat the other people, or like, you automatically think, well, it has to have something to do with me because they're not doing it to other people.
I always felt that my parents helped me survive these moments. My mother would say something like, well, when you go off to college, or, next grade, next teacher, next summer we'll do this or that. She always had that sense that nothing was locked in, and that was very helpful. My father was more the solving of problems, like typical males, very oriented to be helpful. He would be more very sensible, like, if I was having a boring summer and I couldn't find a job, then he'd give me 3 suggestions and help me find something. I think parents are really extremely important. And if there isn't a parent who has that ability, it can be a grandparent, it can be a neighbor down the street, but the research shows that we need at least one person who's really on our side as we grow up. I'm going to, move along because really, our hour is almost up, but I want to use the last 5 minutes to show the film by Antonio, who lives in Massachusetts. We'll get to that in a minute, but I'll just say that Rachel and Megan and Elena are all hopefully coming back, and we're doing the next film about the life and loves and growth of the girl who is the main character in The Truth and Secrets, except now she's older than either of these books. And in the next film, she's going to have a new boyfriend. This time, he may be somebody that really it's a relationship that happens via the virtual world. And so when we play Antonio's little clip, Megan, you may get to see your next boyfriend. We're hoping he'll, he's interested. He's very interested in doing the part. And then there's going to be some other very special events, not all of them great. One is going to involve a school shooting of sorts, and I don't think it'll be anything with a real tragic ending, but enough to make us remember how important all these subjects are, and also show how the three girls could come together very unexpectedly. And then there's some family issues that will keep as surprises. But Cris is very important. She'll be in it too, as the mother, Debbie the producer, and I'm the aunt, so it's great fun. So now let's just play Antonio's clip, which is about voting, and I think it's very poignant that we end the evening. We started at about the shooting in California, and if we end it around the importance of your rights to vote in a democracy.
Hello, my name is Antonio De Leon, and I'm here to discuss my thoughts on voting. As a 17-year-old, I'm not old enough to vote yet, but as I was getting older, I started to realize the importance and significance of voting, because what I put on that ballot shows what I support and what I want for my future. And one vote may seem minute to one, but in the greater scheme of things, it's very important, because you're supporting what you believe in, what you want for our country. And especially for the younger generation, we have to look forward, because we can't be accepting things of the past forever. Things have to change. We have to change policies, create new rights, and ensure the safety and happiness of all the peoples. I think that, yes, in fact, like, the older generation is important. It sets a foundation, but foundations have to be built on, and that's the role of the younger generation. We have to build on that. We have to change it. We have to make it how we please, because to me, the future for the youth is the most important, and eventually the future generations will think the same about our foundations, what we believed in and what we wanted. Things are going to change, but for the time being, as a youthful generation, we have to vote. We have to take matters into our own hands. We can't leave it to older generations. It's up to us for change to happen.
He made a lot of great points. I agree with a lot of that.
Well said.
He's a very articulate kid. It's going to be good.
So you think you might be able to like him in the film?
Is there chemistry over the
I'll have to talk to him first.
All right. Well,
It wasn't love at first selfie.
I like that. Yeah, maybe second selfie. Yes, we don't know. Well, thank you all. We're going to stop, and it's been another Enchanted Self opportunity to think about ourselves and our potential, and to see selfies as drama and selfies as potential therapy, too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye, Rachel.
Bye, Rach.
Bye.
Bye.